Good morning. I want to welcome all of you to this presentation. I really want to take the time to talk about preparedness, see how everyone is doing as far as having kits ready, plans ready, and be able to go through it. So first of all, who I am. I am Bobbi Hicken. I'm the Director of Communications Emergency Management for Lac County. I've been in this position for about 4 years, a little over 4 years. So I run, what that means, my big title is I run the 911 center as well as emergency management. A lot of people don't necessarily know what emergency management is. What I really kind of try to explain to people as far as what my job is I have to look for the worst of anything that is to happen and get people ready and ensure that we are going to be okay with it. I kind of have the black cloud approach to things. So as I'm looking at weather, I'm looking at what is going to happen with that, what kind of damage can be done. Looking at events, trying to figure out the bad that possibly could happen so we can be prepared for it. So I always say that I do my job to ensure that you all sleep at night and don't have to worry about all of those things. As I said at the beginning, this is recorded. Just a reminder to all of the participants to mute your lines. There are going to be surveys throughout with not many participants actually in here. I know that it's not going to be extremely interactive, but I will put those up there for anyone who is viewing it later. And also just to let me know if you have anything that you want to tell me. You can use the chat feature throughout the presentation and we will do questions also. All right, so emergency preparedness. What emergency preparedness is it talks about the steps you take to make sure you're safe before, during, and after an emergency or a natural disaster. It really is so important to know what is going on in your community, what your threats are, and it really helps you to be prepared and ready at all times. So I'm just going to go through the wonderful seasons of Wisconsin. So we have spring, beautiful flowers, everything's great. Also flooding. These are pictures from our March 14th flood in 2019. So these are things that happen in Fond du Lac, not just in Wisconsin, but in Fond du Lac, and things to be prepared for. Go through our next one, summer. This is just a great picture of Lake Winnebago, you can tell, just kidding. Summer is such a great time in Wisconsin, but we have tornadoes and heat emergencies. In 2018, on August 28th, 11 tornadoes went through Fond du Lac County in one day. So it happens. Obviously, we have the Oakfield tornado that occurred as well. As I'm pointing out these events, in the spring, we are more prone to floods. In the summer, we're more prone to tornadoes. It can happen any time of the year. As far as Wisconsin history goes, we have had a tornado in every month of the year except for February. And we average around 23 tornadoes per year in the state. So moving on to our next season, which is fall. And fall is honestly one of the slower times of the year as far as weather emergencies, all of that. So I'm using it to highlight other things that can happen and that everyone has to be prepared for. Fires can happen at any time, and they are so awful to have to deal with. They can be such an awful thing, and they can hurt people, kill people if you don't have plans and you're not ready in the event that you have one. These pictures that I have of fires are actually pictures from the Fond du Lac Fire Rescue, and they're fires that have happened in Fond du Lac County. Last season we have is our winter, and they're beautiful, wonderful winter, but we have extreme cold, ice, snow, power outages. And power outages are one of those things that we really need to look at and really think about, especially with what happened in Texas. So it's a good time to just talk about all of that. So people have a tendency to say it can't happen here, or it's not going to happen to me, or we don't need to worry about this. So some of the things that happened in Wisconsin the Wyawega event in March of 1996, over 2,300 people were evacuated for almost 3 weeks. Back then, we didn't have a lot of preparedness, a lot of outreach to try to teach people what to do in those evacuations. And really, what Wyawega taught us in emergency management a lot about evacuations and these chemical events. But it happened in our own backyard, even more so backyard, Oakville tornado. As I said before, July of 1996, we had an F5 tornado that came through. And it is amazing that nobody was killed in those. You hear in the South all the time about people that are killed with less tornado, less of a effect of a tornado. People responded and did what they were supposed to do and were prepared. And because of that, we had no deaths. And as I talked about, it's not in our backyard, but it really prompted a lot of conversations and hopefully really got people prepared, is the Texas winter event that happened in February 2021. They had massive power outages that affected 4.5 million homes for more than 3 days. There were 12 million people that had water disruptions, and over 200,000 people lost water completely due to freezing pipes and burst pipes. There were at least 70 people that were killed during this event. Now that includes carbon monoxide poisoning from people who were trying to heat their homes unsafely, hypothermia. You all have heard about the hypothermia that people had died from in Texas, crashes, all of that. But the biggest reason I believe that it was so impactful for them is they were not prepared. They're not prepared to deal with that kind of weather, those kinds of extremes. So it's just a great opportunity to highlight what a difference a storm can make in an area if you're prepared or if you're not. So some of the benefits that you have of being prepared is sometimes these weather events happen with little to no notice. And it's not even a weather event, our natural disaster, a human error, terrorism, anything like that. A lot of times there isn't a lot of notice. If you have a plan, chances are you're going to handle the event, whatever it is, much better because people revert to what they know. So if you've taken the time to train yourself in essence on what to do, you're going to respond a lot better. The weather is continuing to get more and more unpredictable and worse. We're seeing 100 years floods happening every few years. We have record cold and heat events that are happening. It's very interesting for me in emergency management just to hear how people message the need to respond and be prepared. So I'm always looking at these kinds of things and trying to see how we can really kind of get the message out to people. And one of the things that was very interesting to me in this last hurricane season, I saw it a little bit the year before, but very much through this hurricane season, is the fact that people were explaining, the elected officials and those responsible for public safety were explaining that there are going to be delays in rescues. For hurricane events, you're going to hear a lot, and we don't have them, thank goodness, but you hear a lot of the messages from those elected officials and those people in power saying, if you do not evacuate, we may not be able to get to you. And that is something that is so, so important for everyone to realize, because I think people just think that if something happens, the fire department is going to be there immediately, or an ambulance is going to be there, or FEMA is going to be there. And that is not the truth, and that is not actually what happens. So that's why it is so important that you are prepared to take care of yourself for an extended period of time until the responders and the help can get there. As we saw in Texas, and this can happen anywhere, there can be a delay in repairing utilities, power lines going down, the water, those kinds of things. If it is a large geographical area, or if it impacted many areas, it may be days before power is restored or the water is safe to drink again. So it is so important that you make sure that you are prepared for those things. So we're going to talk about plans and we're going to talk about kits. So first of all, emergency plans. Our communication plans are so important. And then I'm going to go into evacuation plans. And then I'm going to touch on also shelter in place plans. So I'm going to go through these three quickly for you. First of all, the communications plan. One thing that I want to throw out here is my first poll. So if you can, hopefully the poll just popped up. And if you can just answer without looking at your phones, do you know your spouse's, children, and or parents' phone numbers? And then I'm also asking at this time just to see what you know about it. But in an emergency, is it easier to place a phone call than a text message? So thank you for the honesty in the phone numbers. And I will get to the text messaging. So thank you very much for participating in that. So communications plans, one of the most important things is to have a list of phone numbers. People nowadays do not know each other's phone numbers. You know that you go into your favorites on your cell phone and you click the person you're trying to call. Well, what happens when your phone battery dies or you're not able to make a call through there and you need to make a call with someone else's phone? Have a list of phone numbers in your wallet. I used to laugh because my dad, when he first got a cell phone, he had his cell phone number along with all of ours in his wallet. He always carried that along because he couldn't remember our numbers. And I used to think it was so funny that he would have to do that and he'd have to pull out this sheet of paper. But in actuality, he was being prepared and he was making sure that he knew how to get a hold of us if he needed to. So part of the communications plan is not just knowing the numbers, but having an out of area and or an out of state contact person that all of your family can call in the event that you're separated during an emergency. And I want to just explain that a little bit more. So in an emergency, there's going to be a huge strain on our phone system. The majority of people have cell phones. So the cell phone towers are going to become inundated with phone calls. And actually, we're going to probably have lost some of the cell phone towers due to whatever the event was. So it is going to be hard for two people that are in the same area to be able to talk to each other, because the chances of having that availability is really going to be pretty slim. So if you have somebody who is out of the area and not impacted, you have a better chance of making contact with them and having a phone call go through and be received by them, where you can say, I'm okay. So if my husband calls, you tell him I'm okay and we're going to meet at our meeting place, or whatever messages you want to do. As far as text messaging or cell phone calls, text messages work much better in these events. They take a lot less bandwidth. They're a lot easier to send out, and you can do more in a short amount of time. So please remember that, especially if there's someone who doesn't normally text or isn't very comfortable with text messaging. It is something that you should talk about and make sure that everyone knows how to do, because it is a better way of getting messages across. But again, that out of state or out of area contact person is going to be your central location as to where to talk to each other, make sure everybody's okay. And having that identified beforehand and making sure everybody has that number is so important. So the next thing is an evacuation plan. So there are different kinds of evacuations. You can have an immediate evacuation that you need to evacuate now, or it may be a somewhat planned. Now, normally there isn't a lot of time given to you for a plan, but it does give you a little bit more time to gather more stuff and be able to have that plan out. Um, you need to identify some meeting locations. So with evacuation plans, why would you have to evacuate? One of the reasons may be you have a fire in your home and you have to evacuate. In those situations, your meeting location should be close to your house, but far enough away for safety. So it may be your next door neighbor's mailbox. That may be where you tell your family you need to meet in the event that you have to get out of your house immediately, just so you have that location to go to make sure everybody is okay. Then you should also have at least one meeting location established. So if you are separated in a disaster, you can all say, we are going to meet at the Quick Trip. And hopefully that wasn't impacted by the disaster, and you have to identify which Quick Trip you are actually going to be meeting at. But that is where you would then go to if you cannot get your cell phones out, if you cannot communicate. Have a place that you're going to actually meet and just be there so you can all find a place to get together. When there's evacuations, we talk about the 4 Ps. That is the big immediate evacuation type of thing that we really work on with people to make sure that they have it if they have to evacuate. 4 Ps are pets, phones, purses, and pills. And by pills, we also mean medical aids. If you need a CPAP machine to sleep, grab your CPAP machine. If the fire department comes to your door and says you need to evacuate immediately, plan on it being at least a day. Even if they say it's just for a couple hours, make sure you grab enough of the things that you need so you don't have to worry about having to try to go back or try to get your medication because you took it in the morning and you won't need to take it until tomorrow morning. Take all of that anyways. Also with pills, we talk about prescription pills, but this also means non-prescription, over the counter. If you have to take an aspirin a day, bring that aspirin along. Make sure you have that. Pets are such an important thing, and people nowadays are more inclined to just automatically do that. But that is definitely one of the lessons that we learned from the Waiawega event. People had to evacuate immediately, and many of them left their pets thinking that they would be there be back in a short amount of time. And they actually had to send people back to get these pets. In our flooding that happened on March in 2019, we did have some areas that we had to evacuate, and people forgot these things, these 4 essentials. And we actually had to send firefighters back into their homes to get those things, which does cause a safety risk to those responders, but also ties them up and does not make them available for dealing with other things in the emergency. So make sure that you are always having that readily available. If you have to immediately evacuate, grab those things and be ready. Now, if you have a little more time, you can have, there's more P's that you can think about. Papers, important documents, grab those, have them with you. Again, having those phone numbers with your phones, the important documents with your papers, I threw that in twice. If you have some pictures or irreplaceable memorabilia, grab it and put it in a container and bring that along. Make sure you have your credit cards, your cash, all of that. Just make sure you have it all readily available so you can go if need be, and think about those things if you have to evacuate. So with shelter in place, and that is the last plan that I'm going to talk about today, but I really want to just kind of differentiate between shelter in place and what we have had happen this past year. Shelter in place is different than sheltering or the Safer at Home Act or anything like that. What shelter in place is actually specifically meant for those events where there is a danger outside, be it a chemical danger, of those are the big thing, chemical dangers that you cannot safely evacuate. You have to stay where you're at and shelter in place. In those kinds of events, you're going to be given notices through the NOAA weather radios or your TV stations or radios or anything that you need to immediately shelter in place. What you need to do in those events is make sure that the outside air doesn't get in. So you need to close off all windows, all doors. You need to shut off your furnace or your air exchange or anything like that. The best place to be in a shelter in place situation is an interior room. It doesn't have to be in your basement, but an interior room to put yourself as far away from windows and ability for that chemical to seep in as possible. Also, with your plans, and we'll talk about having kits, is having some type of duct tape or things that you can seal up windows and doors to really make sure that that chemical doesn't get in. In those situations, they are probably only going to be for an hour or two. They're not long, prolonged events, but they are something that you need to make sure that you not just stay in, but stay in and remove any possibility of having that air come into your home or wherever you are. And again, the big thing that I want to highlight is that this isn't the same as just a sheltering, or if somebody says, you need to shelter at home. It says specifically shelter in place, which is for those chemical events. So I'm going to move on to emergency kits and just talk about the different kind of kits that you need. Obviously, you have a vehicle, you need vehicle kits, you need one in your home. So those are the two that I'm going to really kind of go on, because those are the ones that are most prevalent and are really going to help you if you're going to do anything, if you're going to do these. So for your emergency kits, make sure that you have a cell phone charger in the kit if you don't always have it in your vehicle. Some people just have it always plugged in and ready to go. If you do not, make sure you have one in your vehicle so you can have it if you get stranded. You need to also have jumper cables, tire pump, tow straps, those kinds of things in the event that you break down. If there's a weather event and your battery goes dead, if you have jumper cables, you're going to get yourself out of that situation a lot sooner than if you do not. And now you have to call a tow or wait for that. You also want to have water and snacks. Now, this is a hard thing, especially in the winter. You can't just have water in your vehicle all the time and in your kit because it's going to freeze. But this is where you plan ahead and make sure that if it is winter and you're going to be going out, grab a couple bottles of water and make sure that you have it. Having some non-perishable snacks, granola bars, that kind of thing in the kit is really very important. It may sound that like we would be able to get you, you're never going to get stuck in a vehicle for a prolonged period of time. But if the weather is right and there's a lot going on, it can be several hours before we can get to you. Just having that little snack might tide you over and help you wait it out. Having blankets, extra clothing, gloves, hats, all of that, have that in your kit ready to go. If you have to go outside and your gloves are wet, having that extra set of gloves is going to help you so much, not only with your comfort, but with not having frostbite and all of that. Need to have cat litter or sand, just a little bit of it. But what you need that for is traction. If you go into a ditch, that's going to help you gain some traction and potentially get you out of that ditch without having to have a tow come. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, but it's definitely worth a try. And the last thing is a snow shovel. They have the collapsible ones that can fit nicely in a kit. It is so important if you get into a situation with your vehicle where you are stuck. And again, this is a lot of times in the winter. If you can get yourself out of that ditch, that can help you a lot. So having just these couple things on hand can really help you in those events. So for the home, there are several things that you want to make sure that you have. And having a kit like the the one on the picture, having some kind of a plastic tote is really the best way to do that. You want to make sure that in your emergency kit, you have supplies that'll last you for approximately 72 hours. That is always the recommended amount of time that we tell people that they should plan to be able to fend for themselves. In those 72 hours, that gives us and the emergency responders, the utilities, all of that ability to get to you and to get help. But if that is delayed, you are going to be ready to go for those 3 days. So you want to have and plan ahead for this. So you want to have 1 gallon of water per day per person. So you have a family of 4, you're going to want to have 12 gallons of water on hand ready to go. Now, that's not all going to fit in your kit, but if you have a place in your basement that you can put some gallons of water, that is going to be so helpful and beneficial. And believe me, if you get stuck, that water is going to be so important. I'm sure you saw the stories in Texas where they were taking snow and melting it to be able to use it. If you run out of water, that is not a good thing. You want to also have some non-perishable food. You want to have some food that you can use for those 3 days and be able to eat. If any of the foods that you have in your kit have a can or in a can, make sure you put a can opener in your kit. The worst thing that could happen is you have food ready to go, but it's in a can and you cannot open it. So you want to make sure that you have that. Also in your kit, you want to have a couple flashlights. You want to have a radio that you can use. Information is going to be given to you through the radio in these kinds of events. And you want to have some extra batteries on hand to make sure that they both work. Going to want those blankets. You're going to be there for 3 days. You're going to want to get some sleep and be comfortable. So make sure you throw in some blankets in that. And also have a first aid kit. It doesn't have to be a very elaborate one, but know that in these events, you're probably going to need to have some Band-Aids, some gauze, some things like that. Just have those readily available in your kit. So if anyone does get hurt in the process of getting to their safe location and getting into your basement or wherever your emergency kit is going to be, that you're able to treat those. And then the last thing is prescriptions. So this can get a little confusing. And the big thing with all of this is to change it out. You don't want to create a kit in May of 2021 and not look at it again for 3 years. And now everything is expired and nothing works and it's not going to be any benefit to you. So you should really look at your emergency kit and kind of refresh everything every season. That is something that you should be doing. And we talk about that in emergency management. We talk about spring preparedness and fall and winter preparedness. Really just a great opportunity to go through everything. Now with prescriptions, what my recommendation always is talk to your doctor, especially if you have medication that you are only given as much as you need and you have to get that continuously refilled. Ask for an emergency allotment, which will give you a couple days worth of prescription. Put it in your emergency kit, but every month or so, make sure that you have a system where you swap that out with the medication. So now you take the medication that was in the kit and put fresh ones in there. Again, you don't want that to expire. You don't want to put a prescription in there and then a year later it is now expired. It's not going to work. That is very dangerous. So make sure that you have a process for swapping out those medications. Your medications change also. So if you have a change in your prescriptions, you get another prescription or the dosage change, make sure that you put that in your emergency kit. And I talked about it with the evacuations, but over-the-counter medication too. Put some aspirin in there, put some ibuprofen or Tylenol in your emergency kit. Again, being prepared to swap it out. More things, change of clothes. Your 3 days, you're gonna want to have some clothes that you can change into that's really going to help you. Also going to want some paper plates, utensils, napkins. You're going to want garbage bags, and you're going to need those for obviously for the garbage, but you may also need to compromise and create some way to get rid of other waste. So you need to have all of that in your kit. You want to have some cash. If there is a power outage and it is for an extended period of time, your bank may not be able to access that. So having a little cash on hand is going to be definitely beneficial to you. Having a basic toolkit is really important. And that's where you can also put your shelter in place supplies, your duct tape, your tarps, that kind of thing. But just have a hammer and a wrench and that kind of thing. You want to be able to shut off utilities if you need to. And if they're corroded or anything, having that wrench is definitely going to be helpful. Should always have a fire extinguisher in the area. Something could happen. So you want to have that fire extinguisher and a whistle. So a whistle is really important in kits. And even I didn't talk about it with vehicles, but for kits in vehicles, it's also very important. If there is a need to rescue you. So if we have a tornado go through and the responders have to go house by house and try to find people through the rubble and the wreckage and everything, having that whistle is going to draw them to where you are. It takes a lot less energy to blow the whistle than to scream for help. So having that whistle is very, very important. I will preface that with keep it hidden from any kid, because if you are in a basement for 72 hours with a kid with a whistle, that is not going to be a good thing, but have it ready at all times. And speaking of children, if you have children, you need to have additional things in your kit for them. So you're going to want to make sure they have change of clothes. And for any of you with small children, you know that their sizes change constantly. So again, in those seasons, refresh your kit. Make sure that you have clothes that fit the kids at the age that they are at. You want to have blankets for them. One of the things that I always talk about is my kids, when they were little, they had a blankie. It was their favorite blanket. With my first child, I did not learn this, and we had one blankie. And if that blankie got lost or I had to wash it, it was an awful thing. With my second child, as soon as we learned what that blankie was, we got another one. This is where you can have one of their blankies in the kit. If you have to get to your emergency location and the blankie isn't there, that can be a lifesaver and have that comfort for that child. So just something to think about. Children also have special needs for formula, baby food, depending on the age of the children. So make sure you have that and you're swapping it out. Diapers and wipes, again, those are very size dependent. So make sure that you have the appropriate sized diapers in there. Want to have some diaper ration ointment. You're not going to have the baths and the readily available sanitary stuff. So you want to make sure you have that diaper rash ointment in case you do get a diaper. They do get a diaper rash. You want to also have some toys and games and activities for them. You want to find things that can keep them occupied. It is really best to have some new toys in there. And so it's something fresh and new to them. So that keeps them occupied at least for some periods of time while you have to be in this emergency situation. For pets, you need to have their identification tags. If they don't have them on, if they don't wear them on their collar, make sure that you have them in your emergency kit. Also, something to have in your emergency kit is a picture of you with your pet. Where this is so important is if your pet wasn't able to safely get to your location without you, this is proof to the Humane Society that is your animal and you're able to use that. That is so important, especially in those situations where you may be separated from your animal. You want to make sure you have food and water and bowls for them also. If you have a cat, make sure you have a cat litter in a pan. You want to have leashes and carriers. for them so you can contain them, especially if you have to evacuate at any point. And again, have those toys for them. So you want to be able to do that. And I know that as I'm talking about kits, it does seem like it's a lot of work and you have to be constantly refreshing it and have to have all of this stuff in it. But it really only takes a little while once you get that kit together. If you just set a calendar reminder to yourself to do that, it really only takes a little time. It can be a habit and it can save your life. It is something that you can do for yourself to ensure that you and your family are protected in a situation where emergency responders are not going to be able to get to you right away. So the other thing with having a kit, having a plan, anything, is to stay informed at all times. As I said before, the NOAA weather radio is an important tool for you to have. And we do call it the NOAA weather radio, but it is actually an all hazards alert radio. And what that means is if there is a situation, as I said, like a shelter in place situation, or there is a major event that is happening, we in emergency management and in local government can actually have the government put out notices through the weather radio, all hazards radio. So it's very important to have for weather events, and it is a lifesaver in weather events, but it also does help you in those other events that happen. Many of them have the ability to also have a regular AM, FM receiver, and you can hear local radio on there also. That is a great thing to have because, as I said, if we have to get information out to the public, give them updates, anything like that, we are going to be reaching out to our local radio and giving them the information to disseminate out to everybody. So having that ability. Then in Fond du Lac County also, we have Code Red is what we call it. It is our mass notification. And if you sign up for it, there's two ways that you can sign up for it. You can go on our website, and actually I'm going to put all of the links in the chat, and I'll talk about the different links. But if you go to the Fond du Lac County webpage and go to the communications and emergency management departments, you're going to see a link for Code Red. Click on that, and that allows you to register your name, your address, your phone number. And in the event we have a situation that your house is located within, you will receive an emergency notification with instructions on what you need to do. We only use these notifications for life or death situations. We do not send them out for road closures or anything like that. If you receive this notification, it means that you must do something immediately for your life safety. What you can also do is you can sign up to receive notification if something is happening at your parents' address. So you have that notification. So you're able to put in locations that you want to be notified of being in that area. The other thing that you can do is the text FDL County. If you go on your smartphone and text FDL County with no space to the number 99411, it is going to give you a link to sign up and to actually load the Code Red app, which will give you those safety alerts on your phone. What is very important about that also is by signing up and having that app on your phone, if you are in another community that uses Code Red and there is something that they need to disseminate out, Code Red is going to know that your phone is within that area and you're going to get that message as well. So it doesn't just work in Fond du Lac County, but what it does is it actually takes the location of where you're at rather than just your home address. So it really gives you real-time information right where you are. So those are two great ways to sign up for Code Red and be able to get alerts as needed. Then I want to quickly just talk about Smart 911. It is something that we have in Fond du Lac County. It isn't necessarily something that is about building a kit or disasters or anything like that. It is more for your day-to-day emergency where you may have to call 911. So Fond du Lac County has this thing called Smart 911, and it allows you to sign up and create a profile on a website. And the information is in the chat with the website as to where to go to, which is on the Fond du Lac County website. So what what Smart 911 is it is a location where you enter the information you want a 911 dispatcher to know in the event you call 911. I want to make sure that you understand that this is extremely private and secure. The website that you are going to and where they maintain this information uses the same security settings as banks do. So it is a very, very secure system. People are not going to be able to hack into your account and see things. They do not sell phone numbers or anything like that. It is all very safe and secure. Also, the only time a 911 dispatcher can access this information is if you call 911. Even in that, after 45 minutes, it no longer is available to the 911 dispatcher to see. So that is how secure it is. It's also free. So the differences between Smart 911 technology that we have right now. So a very quick overview of 911. Landline phone calls are still the best as far as getting information. With a landline cell phone, if you can't talk, a landline 911, we know your phone number, your name, and your address. That is very good information. We can rely upon it. We can send responders. For a cellular 911 call, we immediately get a phone number. We do also get GPS coordinates, but they're not always accurate, especially if you're inside a home. With Smart 911, no matter how you call it, either landline or a cell phone, we can get all the information you want us to know about you. And it's as much information as you want. It can be any medical conditions you have. It can be any allergies you might have, who your emergency contacts are, how many pets you have. It really just gives you an ability to give that dispatcher so much more information about you. So this also, we have an app because there's an app for everything. So you can also upload the app and keep up with your safety profile. So that is another way. So I want to just show you how this works with Smart 911. So if I called 911, I actually did this. So I called 911 from my cell phone. That is where that green circle, that is where the phone told 911 that I was at. Down on the bottom is where my home is. So Smart 911 told the dispatcher right away, hey, that's where she lives. Where that's really important is if my cell phone had plotted near that home, we could send responders to that location because chances are I may be at home. Where the next green circle is where Smart 911 told the 911 dispatcher where I was. And just to kind of further go into this is my office. We're in the jail. Again, this is that alley information, which is the information that the cell phone provided 911. That is where I actually was. So that's how accurate it is. Now, the other piece of information that was given to the 911 dispatcher is that's my work address. So they were able to tell, even without anything else, hey, she works there and it's close there's a good chance that that's where she is. So this is what it looks like for the responders. And this is my profile. So you can see I have all of my family members listed on here, and you can click on all of them. I have my work location, my home address, and the mapping shows up. So again, these are the people in my home, and can click on any of them, get a profile. Again, you can enter any information that you want to show the dispatcher. Now, I do not have anaphylaxis reactions. However, I put this on here so people can see. So if I called a 911 and this Smart 911 profile showed up and all the dispatcher could hear was gasping for breath, this immediately tells the emergency responders that she has had prior allergic reactions. That could be what's happening. Now, they're not going to just blindly go there, but they're going to make sure that epi is ready, and they're going to be prepared for a possible allergic reaction. Same thing with heart issues, anything like that. Also, when you give your address, you can show pictures of it if you want. You can show how many bedrooms. So if we have a fire, the emergency responders will know that one or more of our bedrooms are above the main entrance. So they're going to be on that second floor. So they know where they may need to find people if there is a fire. Talks about the different siding. Also, you have the ability, if you want, to show where the closest fire hydrant is. This is all information that you can enter if you want, but my fire hydrant is just very fortunately right across the street, but this gives them that information. Then this is where I said that I showed my work address. I have a picture here of my actual entrance. So now not only do they have to know that it's somewhere at that city county building, but that's the entrance. So if they needed to find me, that's where they'd be able to do it. You can also add information about your pets, pictures of your animals. So that is truly my cat. Her name is Princess. And that tells the emergency responders we also have cat. I don't even have to say anything. So again, it's information that you provide as much or as little as you want, but it gives us the ability to find you in the event that you have to call 911. So that is all of the information that I have set up to provide you. I know that I kind of went all over the place with the planning, the kits, and then the Smart 911. These are the sites that I gave in the chat for additional resources. readywisconsin.wi.gov is a very, very good site to get plan checklists. The different types of plans that you need, they have the checklist, they have all of the information that you could have for all of the different ones. Also, I included the Red Cross website, that how to prepare for emergencies. That is another great opportunity for you to get information. Red Cross also has a lot of pre-made kits that are available to buy. So that is an opportunity for you too. And then I did include the Smart 911 registration, which comes off of the Fond du Lac County website. So if you could click on that, or if you go to the Fond du Lac County website and go into communications, that is also available to you. So as I was talking at the beginning, before everyone got on, Zoom is a hard thing to have an interactive presentation with. I really appreciate you being a part of it. I hope once we can get back to normal that I can do another presentation in person and have a lot more interaction and be able to get that information out. But I really appreciate you taking time this morning, especially on this beautiful day, to learn a little bit about planning and what you need to do to make sure that you're safe in those events. So I want to just leave it if there's any questions. We have a couple minutes. And so if anyone wants to ask any questions, otherwise that is my email address and also my phone number. So if anyone does want to talk to me any further about anything, you can always do so. So thank you very much. And I'll just hang around for a little bit if anyone has any questions.